Okay, so we've been talking so far about a change in price causing a change in your quantity demanded, not your demand. That is so important. So when we determine our demand, there is an assumption that nothing else is changing. So when we look at that schedule, this is a snapshot in time. So a change in price is illustrated by movement along the same demand curve. So if all we're doing, once we create our demand and take our schedule and plot our points and say this is our demand, if all I'm doing is changing price, we're going to move along this same demand curve. So at this P1, Q1 is the quantity that we want. If price comes down, because of the law of demand, we know that quantity is going to go up. So when we go down to P2, Q2 is the quantity. Once again, this is 0. The numbers are getting bigger going this way. It's just a simple number line, and this is 0, and the numbers are getting bigger. So as our price comes down, our quantity goes up. As price goes back up, our quantity comes back down. A change in price does not change demand, it changes your quantity demanded, and it's illustrated by movement along this downward sloping curve, and the curve slopes down because of the law of demand. Prices come down, quantity goes up. But things don't stay the same. Things change, and so we're going to look at what are called the ceteris paribus conditions. And ceteris paribus in Latin means all other things held constant. So when we're looking at our demand curve, we only took into consideration a change in price, and it's only accurate as long as everything else is held constant. Nothing else in your life is changing. Everything is remaining the same. So that's what ceteris paribus means. When we look at a change in price, ceteris paribus, when all we're doing is changing the price and everything else is remaining constant, we're moving along the same curve. But what happens when we drop the ceteris paribus rule and we allow other factors to change? And that's what this looks like. We have a situation here where we had our original demand schedule, but for some reason, at each and every price, this was what our original quantities, but something has happened, and for whatever reason, now at $15 we only want 0, or actually we don't want any, obviously. At $12 instead of 2 we only want 1. At $9 instead of 3 we want 2. At $6 instead of 5 we want 4, and then at $3 instead of 7 we want 6. So instead of moving on the same curve, what we've now done is created a whole entire new curve. And notice, if you look at this, what has happened is our demand has gone down because at each and every one of these price levels we want less. So we plot our points again, and we see we have a whole entire new curve to the left of our old curve. And so a decrease in demand is a shift of the whole entire curve to the left because of something other than a change in price. So when you go in and the price is $6, you tell yourself, okay, I don't want 4 this time, I only want I don't want 5 this time, I only want 4. And the same is true if we increase demand. We could put a whole entire new schedule over here, and at $15 instead of 1 we'd want 2. And so we'd plot all of our new points over here, we draw our curve, and an increase in demand would be a shift to the right. So make sure that you understand that. We're creating a whole entire new schedule, a whole entire new demand that has nothing to do with the change in price. And we're going to look at these conditions that actually cause us to buy more or less at each and every price level. A decrease in demand is a shift to the left because it's the number line. Our numbers are getting smaller going to the left, so we have to shift the curve to the left. An increase in demand is a shift to the right because it's the number line. Numbers get bigger going to the right. So let's look at the things that actually change demand. Sometimes these are called the ceteris paribus conditions. Sometimes you'll hear them called the determinants of demand, and sometimes they'll be called the non-price factors of demand because these are the things that cause the curve to shift that have nothing to do with price. And the first one is your change in income. And this is sometimes referred to as income elasticity. And what elastic does is it moves. And so that's what we're saying. Because of our income, we are going to see movement of the whole entire curve. And there are 3 different things that can happen when your income changes. Remember, we are not changing the price of the product, we are changing your income. So if it's a normal good, what normally happens when your income goes up is you want more stuff. And so that's what happens to your demand. Your income increases, your demand increases. It's going to shift the whole entire curve to the right. When your income decreases, your demand decreases. And there's my Jaguar. If my income ever goes up high enough, I will finally be able to get a Jaguar. So when my income goes up to a certain amount, and you know, new cars are normal goods. When your income goes up, you buy a new car. Now to some people, a used car would be a normal good. At your age, when you're working a part-time job, when you finally get a job, you buy a used car. So we have to be careful here because these terms are subjective because it's different from person to person. So for me, this Jaguar would be a normal good. If my income ever gets up that high, then I will buy a Jaguar. Inferior goods are when your income increases, your demand actually goes down. These are things like a used car. If your income, once you get out of college and you get a nice job and you're making $100,000 a year, you no longer want the used car. It will become an inferior good to you, and you'll want a normal good. You'll get a new car. And then when your income decreases, your demand increases. You lose that job, you got to get rid of the new car, and now your demand for a used car is increasing. My example for this is always Spam. When David and I first got married, we didn't have any money. I hadn't finished school. He was working construction, and it was seasonal. So we had Derek, and then I got pregnant with Devin. So Spam for me is an inferior good. The moment David got hired at Chrysler, I have never bought Spam again. So if he loses his job and I lose my job and our income goes down, it's very cheap. It's a cheap source of protein, so I'll start buying it again. But till that point, to me, Spam is inferior. David complains all the time because I don't buy it. He likes it, but I'm not buying it. Neutral goods, your demand does not change when your income increases. When David got his job and I got out of school and got my job, I didn't start buying more toothbrushes and toothpaste and toilet paper and laundry soap. All of those things I still bought at the same rate that I bought before. So normal goods, inferior goods, depends on the person, obviously, but I will always inform you this is a normal good, this is an inferior good, or otherwise you can just assume these things are normal goods. The next factor is consumer expectation. Current demand is positively related to its expected future price. So what that means is if you expect the price to rise in the future, you're going to go ahead and buy it today. So your demand is going to increase even though there's not been a change in price. If you expect the price to fall in the future, why would you buy it today? You're going to wait until the demand falls. Or you're going to wait and not buy it today so your demand will fall today so you can buy it in the future. And I put the picture of the gas tank here because it's cheaper to fill these in the summer. And so a lot of people get towards the end of the winter and they try to conserve because they realize if they can wait long enough and not use this fuel that they can get a lower price. So our demand, even though we need it, tends to fall the closer we get to spring so people can hold off and wait until the summer and fill these tanks up because we know in the summer the price of fuel oil is going to be cheaper. Population. If you have an increase in population, obviously the demand for things is going to go up. We can look at the baby boom after World War II, and you can kind of follow that trend throughout these years since the mid to late 1940s. When we had the baby boom, there was an increased demand in baby clothes and everything that goes along with babies. Once they get to a certain age, now we need new schools for all of these new kids, and then eventually they go off to college. So you've got colleges who are building new buildings and new dorm facilities because there are so many children or so many students entering universities. And now we see there's a huge demand for things for these people since now they're into retirement. So anytime you have an increase in population, you're going to see that. The next one is demographics, which is a statistical characteristic of a population. So if you have a certain age group that lives in a certain area, or certain race, or certain gender, we're seeing this more with ethnic groups because we have an increase in the amount of Hispanics that are moving and immigrating to the United States. I mean, you see all kinds of new Mexican restaurants, authentic Mexican restaurants, and stores and things to provide products and services for these different groups of people. The next one, consumer tastes and preferences. Businesses spend millions of dollars in advertisement to try and get you to um, purchase their products, try and make you think that this is the best. And we have social trends. You know, we've seen uh, Crocs come and go, the Uggs come and go. Television influences. We'll see something on shows, and I put Steven Tyler on here because for a while there, and I think he's the one that actually started this trend, girls were wearing those feathers in their hair because they saw him actually wear these on American Idol. And so there were tackle shops that actually could not keep up with the demand for these feathers because the girls were going in, or beauticians were going in and buying out all of these feathers that were actually at some point being used to make tackle for fishermen. So he created a whole entire trend that I don't think that's here anymore. That's kind of gone, but he did that. Price of related goods. This is called cross elasticity because what we're talking about are two goods, and the change of price of one is going to cause your demand for the other to change. So complements are two goods that are bought and used together. My example here is chips and salsa. If I go to the store and salsa is on sale, I'm changing the price of salsa, so I'm changing my quantity demanded. I'm increasing. And if I'm buying more salsa, then my demand for chips is going to go up because I always buy those two together, and vice versa. If the price of salsa goes up, I'm not going to buy it, so my demand for chips is going to go down. The price of one, we're changing its quantity demanded. The price of the other one, because I'm not changing the price, I'm changing my demand for that. And then substitute goods. These are goods that are used in place of one another. I put a picture of skis and ski boards here. When I go and if I think that they are substitutes, and I go in and I see the price of snowboards has gone up, my quantity demanded for snowboards is going to go down, but I want to buy something, so my demand for skis is going to go up. If I go in and the price of skis is down, my quantity demanded of skis is going to go up, but my demand for snowboards is going to go down. So we'll actually do some of these in class, and hopefully all this makes sense.